Hey, everybody. Welcome to our final CalPADS network meeting for the 2023-24 school year. We'll give it just a minute while some people are rolling in. I've got my team with me, and they'll be dropping links in the chat. And while we're waiting for a few minutes for people to roll in, I thought, let's get started with a little gratitude. So in the chat, if you will, drop in, it's the end of the school year. I know CalPADS doesn't really get an end of school year celebration. I know that's the worst thing, but who or what would you like to acknowledge or celebrate at the closing of this school year? And if you're retiring, let us know if that's something to celebrate, if there's somebody who's been particular assistance to you. But let's take a moment just to acknowledge somebody or something that is worth celebrating. It doesn't have to be related to our work, but I'm going to kick it off. First of all, I'm super grateful for my amazing team, and I'll introduce them in a minute. But I was away for a week last week, and they were busy working in the background to make sure nothing came to a grinding halt. So that was super cool. I also am super grateful for our SIS vendors from Power School and Aries, who've been here for every meeting and will be here today. They're always so consistent and showing up, and I know we don't get everybody, but we get the two vendors who serve the vast majority of our districts. So I really appreciate them being so consistent and being helpful for us. And I just saw she popped in. I'm super grateful for former CalPADS and Dan member, current CDE CalPADS guru, Shaun Walker, who's joining us again. She's always here. I know she's got a hard stop, but she was willing to join us. So I'll get her in just a little bit. But what do we got in the chat? What are we grateful for? Nothing yet. Nobody's grateful for anything. Marie, celebrating my daughter becoming a senior. Me too. I've got both my daughters are seniors now. I'm a little bit scared. And in fact, that's where I was last week. I was in Florida. I've got a summer themed presentation but I will say, don't go to Florida in the summer if you're expecting vacation like temps. It was miserable. Allison, CalPADS coordinator, celebrate awesome SPED department. Yes. Oh man, if you got a good SPED department, that makes your life so much easier. Dr. Moja is appreciative of the amazing CalPADS data SIS team at Puck Schools that he gets the pleasure to work with. Chris, I know your team is really great at supporting you and the schools. You're a model for good practices, so we appreciate that. But yeah, anybody else, if you want to drop it in the chat, we'll make sure we give a shout out. And if you don't want to shout it out, Jaime, our old friend Jaime, is grateful for the Ed Services team from Montebello. Many personnel changes for next year. Uh-oh. Jaime, are you good? Are you retiring? No, you're too young. You're too young. +1 from Albert for his special ed team with CalPADS. Yeah, if you got a good special ed team, oh my gosh, I bet life is so much easier. All right, well, I'll move on, and we'll keep this party rolling. Let me quickly introduce my team. I'm Evan Bartleheim. I didn't even mention that. I'm the project director for accountability and data literacy with LACOE. I'm joined by Dr. Hillary Weissman, who's our coordinator 3 within the unit. Karina Nahara, who's our amazing secretary. And we've got Jeremy Vinland, and our newest member is Roy Lung. And Roy, we just snagged Roy, and the best part about getting Roy is that he's got CalPADS experience. He's been at LACOE for 5 or so years, and he worked in tech services, and he knows validation errors. He knows he knows his way around CalPADS. Let's just put it that way. So I'm actually really excited to have him, and hopefully it'll allow us to better serve LEAs moving forward, just with things that are relevant, and also any kind of support for LEAs that may end up needing additional support for hopefully it won't happen, but for technical support. So for some quick housekeeping, if you could just rename yourself to include your LEA name in the chat, just in case we go back and look at the chat for any big questions or themes. If you have any questions, and Shaun's here and she'll answer questions. If you have random questions, I'm gonna hopefully, I didn't run this by Shaun. I'm hoping Shaun can just jump in with me and I'll as I'm going through some of these updates, because I think that's where a lot of the questions will be. But any questions you may have, you can drop those in the chat, and we'll email everyone with the follow-up questions that we aren't able to answer thoroughly, or even if we are able to answer them in the moment, we like to provide additional support. And we're a very small group, only 50 or so folks. So if you want to raise your hand to clarify anything, just to do that. And we are recording this, and we'll upload that recording and share the agenda within 48 hours. We have everything is loaded to our Canvas page. Hopefully you take a look there. I know they've been dropping that in the chat. Oh, I want to introduce one other new person to our group whose face just popped up. We have a new assessment coordinator. She comes directly from the field. She just got here from Wiseburn School District. But Sarah Nitsos is new to our larger LACOE team, and we're super happy to have her. So if you have any questions that arise related to assessment, she's our other go-to, along with Stephen Bartlett. So welcome, Sarah. So again, reminder, just our purpose here is to try to share timely information about CALPADS issues, to provide feedback to the CDE, to build any understanding that we can amongst our CALPADS colleagues about the impact and reach, but then beyond our network here, right? The key thing, just like Dr. Moja mentioned, is having a great team, and we're trying our best to build the understanding of people outside of the CALPADS world about how important it is to support you. Anybody who's brand new to CALPADS, that's where we want to give extra support to, and we're here for any questions you might have. And then just to build understanding of CALPADS across all the LEAs, because there's definitely a lot of strength to be had in a stronger data culture, and the ability to share the responsibilities for looking at our data, make sure it's accurate, and then to share any resources. And I think we have some good resources. I'm always hopeful that you'll get some resources to take away that makes your time here worth it. We aren't a technical support in the way that CDE or CSIS can be, but we have links here for all the amazing meetings that are available to you, and the listservs and whatnot. I follow most of these. I see a lot of you in like the CalPads Q&A every Wednesday, and I will be calling on you eventually to come share some of your insights, because I find that there's a lot of people who participate there, and just have great insights that they share in the chat. And so I know we've got some great insights in the field here. After our introduction, we're almost done with, and we have a couple meeting announcements for next year. What I'd like to do, and Shaun is hearing this for the first time, so I hope this works for you, Shaun. We'll just go through some recent notes and notifications that I've kind of come across that I think are really important, so in case you missed them, because they're easy to miss. So we're just kind of aggregating everything. And then going through some of the recent flashes. Our last meeting was April 11th, hard to believe, 2 months ago. And there have been a number of flashes that have come out since, and even some flashes that have been updated in other flashes. So, but that's a lot of information. So hopefully we have answers just to kind of summarize them and make sure everybody's key on those. And then I have some end of year resources that are largely just designed to help you bring in other people who will help you with your, evaluating your data, making the certification process more effective, and build some understanding around that capacity. And then we have our 2 vendors who are going to be joining us, who we have the breakouts, and the links for those are in Canvas. There's a page with the links. So upcoming for 2024-25, we have our dates. I'm going to stick with 4 dates. I just, I was thinking maybe I'll scale it back, but just for these network meetings, and I'm hopefully going to be able to rely on, as I mentioned, some of the people in the field to come in and just give here's our best practices. We kind of stretch these out. Now, I will say these are subject to change, because we don't yet have the dates for the CDE's regional quarterly meetings, and we had a conflict this year, so we had to move one. So I put these out there, just kind of spread them throughout the year with the expectation that they may have to move, but mark your calendars. If you're currently a network member, meaning you're here, you don't have to do anything. We've rolled over your registration. You'll automatically receive notices through the OMS system, so you'll have access. But if somebody new comes along, or if you have somebody who you think will benefit from joining our meetings or getting any of our notifications that we send out, just to have them send them this link, the registration link. It's also in Canvas, and we'll add them. We have the nice thing about doing things virtually is we have no limit to how big I guess we have somewhat of a limit with Canvas, or with with Zoom, but generally speaking, we can accommodate everybody. And then I know I mentioned it last time, we haven't dialed in the dates, but we have a new series we're working on, and this is in conjunction with the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, our good friend Rebecca Aguilar there, who we frequently share her resources. I'm calling it Build Your LEA's Data Capacity now, based on, I think Margarita's here. We shared this at the Dan meeting. We talked about this, and we talked about this last week, but we talked about Dan at our Dan meeting, the Assessment and Accountability Network. And I kind of explained it, and the comment we got was, don't put CalPADS in the title because they'll only send the CalPADS people. And of course, we understand how that works. It's like, this is really designed for LEA teams to build, their knowledge, enhance their systems, and improve the accuracy of the data. It doesn't work just to send your CalPADS person. So it's an in-person series. That's per the request of Fresno County. That's part of the reason it's a little bit tougher, because we're struggling to find rooms and dates that match up. But I'm hoping to record it, not because I'm not going to record it and share it live. It's just not designed for for a hybrid, and it's never great. But for us to reflect on, and also possibly be able to share it, won't have all the great interactive components where you're sitting with your team and digging through things. But here's kind of the breakdown. Approximate time frame. We're looking at a September date, is doing the CalPADS overview and that fall 1 prep, and talking about why CalPADS is important, where the data come from, who should be part of the team, the connections to funding. That's where your LCFF dollars come from, and the critical nature, the critical need to look at your fall 1 reports to get the accuracy there, and also for your distribution Title I funds for fall 1. And then just the individual fall 1 prep. Then in November, thereabouts, we would look at doing the fall 1 review and then the fall 2 prep. So recapping those fall 1 reports, because you're still going to be in the certification submission cycle. Some of the common issues that come up, then the CalPADS fall 2 connection to assignment monitoring. So ideally you have your HR people there, any of your EL services, and course attributes, again, for your assignment monitoring, understanding what your courses should contain and what problems could pop up. And then finally, again, your fall 2 prep and who should be there. And then somewhere around April, we would do final preparation for end of year with the dashboard overview. And this would be pretty labor intensive. So all the things you're doing now, your CalPADS end of year and cohort, connecting those reporting to the dashboard, the kind of common issues that pop up, and who should be on your team. And you'll see some of her materials today, because she is very generous, and I will be sure to share those. Anyway, we do have, I think we'll have the dates too for the regional meetings soon, and then we'll make adjustments, and we'll make sure everybody gets those, so you can make sure you can attend those. So some general updates. I know so much comes through our, but the latest CalPADS code sets were released, right? They're still valid. There's some changes there. So it's posted on the CD CalPADS. If you missed this, if you're not old enough, congratulations. But if you remember the jerk with Steve Martin, the new phone books are here. The new phone books are here. That's kind of how the data nerds like you and me, we feel when we see the CalPADS code sets. And I know, we jokingly, we want you to share. I don't know too many people who I would send, my CalPADS code sets to, but occasionally they're very useful for explaining, course codes, for example, and things. So there's infinite uses, but I probably wouldn't just randomly ship somebody the the Excel file. But if you know, you know. That's all I'm saying. Come on, Dr. Mose, you got to be down with me, right? On the you got excited when the code sets got updated. Some upcoming data release. Yeah. some upcoming data releases we've got, and these say in spring, our accountability unit. I know that one of these files is ready. I think it's probably just the other one that's holding things up. Maybe Shaun knows a little bit more. But we have these 2 student level data releases, the college career indicator student level files, which would be this is data from the 22-23 year, but it's really helpful for looking back. If you're trying to, figure out, okay, what went wrong with our data last year and how can we prevent that again for this year, right? So it's timely in the sense that if you had low numbers in some area last year where you're like, that doesn't sound right. And I've talked to a lot of school districts, they felt like, gosh, we didn't get all our college career indicator stuff accurate, because I know we had a higher A through G completion rate. We've talked to a couple districts already who are worried about that. This is a good way to go back and unpack that. And I know that file is just, I think it's ready to go, just ready to get released. And then the long-term English learners, the LTEL and at-risk LTEL, the student level data file, which aligns with the old definition in Ed Code 313.1. And you will get notified of these. These will be in the source system, but CalPADS folks are on the receiving end. And I think maybe dashboard coordinators will also hear about this, but because you may receive these, I wanted to make sure you're ready. And as soon as they arrive, you send it out to the right folks. The announcement tentative, didn't we just finish the civil rights data collection this year? I know they got backed up, right? Not anybody wants to be thinking about the CRDC again, but I just thought it's good to put it on your radar so you know when to plan your retirement, if you can do that. But we have tentative dates for this year. For December 9th is the opening of the window through March 7th. And of course, it's required of all public schools, and the Office of Civil Rights will be releasing more information in the coming months. I know this is a huge lift, and usually it's nice because it's only every other year, but COVID kind of pushed things back a little bit. So I'm just sorry, checking the chat there. Oh, hey, thank you, Dr. Mosier. He turned the Excel document of the code sets into something more readable on his amazing resource, the School Data Leadership Guide. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. What else we got? Oh, this is always an important one, and I'll give you a quick background. So, reminder that the foster youth and former foster youth reports get purged out of the ODS at the end of the year, and by June 30th. So LEH definitely should download this. And I had a case last year we were working with the district that was identified for differentiated assistance, and the count for foster youth for 2 of their indicators, I don't think suspension was a problem, but chronic absenteeism was. And they're seeing a number that they just couldn't wrap their heads around because they'd never seen, active enrollment of more than 30 foster youth in the district. But of course, chronic absenteeism and suspension use cumulative enrollment throughout the year, and you have a population that is constantly changing, especially with your foster youth. So report 5.9 would allow you to retroactively go back and verify your numbers in case they didn't look right. By the time we got to talking to this district, it was past that time, but definitely consider archiving all your foster youth data now, so while you have it, because just good practice, and you never know when it may become helpful. This is kind of a throwback, but it's always relevant, and I know some LEAs policies or practices maybe haven't aligned with this in the past. But anyway, this was guidance from Flash 219. It was subsequently updated in Flash 258 to be still relevant to this day, and so it's still relevant this year. Just ignore in the little table you're seeing, those are old years, school years, but the dates are still relevant. I mean, the guidance is still relevant, not the dates, but this guidance will tell you when you should reclassify. If you're reclassifying students based on, if you had a student reclassified using 22-23 LPAC data, hopefully you reclassified them no later than May 31st, got them in ideally by May 15th. But any students who now are subsequently being reclassified based on their 2024 LPAC results and all the other criteria that are being met, you have some options. And of course, for a lot of you, schools either out or about to end, and it's like, what do we do? And I know in the past we've had folks come to us and say, can we reclassify students after school ends? And the answer is yes. As long as the student, you have to have an active enrollment. So you can backdate the reclassification date to the final day of school, and it details all this here. So long as a student doesn't have a future enrollment. I know this is a problem especially if you're a charter school and students are matriculating, or if you're an elementary school district, you just want to make sure to catch all the, get credit for all the hard work you did in reclassifying students. And this guidance dials that in. And I know that's been the confusion, that some people feel like, well, once the school year ends, I exited those students, I can't then go back and reclassify them. But this guidance will tell you exactly how to do it and how to ensure that you can capture those reclassifications if you're getting them done now right after school year gets out, or if you don't, and where the subsequent reclassification, maybe they stay within your district or within your school and the process, what date you would apply then. So make sure you check that out. And there is an added twist this year, right, Shaun? So there is an IVR, an error, if there's not the RFEP start date doesn't overlap with enrollment, right? Okay. So some repercussions this year. So it's now going to be driven home.
Yeah, so that's in Flash 258, Evan, which you referenced as the IVR that ensures that the enrollment date matches or it's within the period of the CELA RFEP date.
Right. Thank you. 269, we talked about this last time. Knowing Shaun was going to be here, I brought it back up because I saw in the CalPADS listserv a lot of questions around this. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear on it. But 269 about the 2024 summer EBT. Any of your students who enrolled after March 30th or through August 31st, you want to have that CalPADS enrollment in CalPADS and program records, right? 181, 182, 135, or 195, and make sure those addresses are updated. And we want to make sure that you update any enrollments for transitional kindergarten or kindergarten enrolling California public schools for the first time, and that those students also then have the program records in place. And this is all done to identify students who became eligible for the summer EBT benefits on or after March 29th. So is the problem with students largely who enrolled after the after fall census day, right, Shaun? Okay, so making sure that all those shouldn't be a lot. And I did include the link here from that CalPADS regional meeting where they went into great detail. And then just so eligibility for the SAWS, the statewide automated welfare. This should streamline things, right, Shaun? This process. Okay, so and then it's only, I think the concern would be any school lunch, any schools that were had CEP or Provision 1 or 2 status. If they came in, if they weren't there, if they hadn't been identified for their initial eligibility during the year that the CEP or Provision 1 or 2 was established, you'd want to make sure you had either the National School Lunch Form or an alternative income form on file for them, right? So you could capture them. How did I do in summarizing that?
You did great.
Okay.
You did great.
There's a lot to unpack on this one.
For the initial LPAC, I do want to just remind everyone that for summer testing, and I don't know, I didn't go through the slide sheet yet, Evan. So if you're going to come up to that, let me know and I'll stop.
I'm about to come up to it.
Yay. Okay.
Okay. I see Marie's question. We're gonna get to some stuff here in a little bit related to end of year, so we'll save that for then. But yeah, I think a bigger question too was with the summer is a little bit different. So just managing parents' expectations. Hopefully you won't be dragged into that, but there were some different criteria for identification for summer EBT than there were for the pandemic EBT card. So this was I'm going to include it even though it's already been updated, but then just to I'll give you the updates that came out of Flash 273. So Flash 270 was the end of year 4 special education revised guidance with other updates. It highlighted some of the changes to reporting, specifically called out report 16.22 and the supporting report 16.23 that at the time were not available. Those have subsequently become active. Also, all the certification data discrepancies are now enabled, right, Shaun? I think, is there any that are not yet?
Those I'm not absolutely positive about.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and read the Flash and then also There's another one on the table that's supposed to be coming out hopefully this week.
Okay.
I need to
Okay.
compare those two.
All right. Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
It's okay, no worries. I
Um,
know if I just don't have an answer, I'll let you know and then get back to you. Not a problem.
okay. Thanks. And I do think that some of this, if you have the answers, because I know some of you guys are really working closely, you may be able to answer this. But the key reminder, I guess, the key takeaway. So once those approval buttons are enabled, that'll allow both the LEAs and SELPAs to approve end of year 4 submissions. And just remember, SELPAs are strongly encouraged to certify by that initial July 26th deadline, but they don't have to. However, they must approve by the August 16th deadline. There's going to be no amendment window. So kind of a key feature this year. Flash 270, this was kind of the degree of support. I tried to kind of break it down a little bit. And this is just related to, this is a timeline for making, adding data with the degree of support determination for all students who have a designated primary and secondary disabilities. There's some concern over the timeline for doing that. So the CDE responded with a phased in timeline. So from now until the fall of 2025, LAs will be asked to populate the plan file, the field 23.16, anytime there's a triggering event. So for example, the initial evaluation, an annual plan review, reevaluation, or amendment. So you don't have to get it all done at once. So you have more than a year. The degree of support field will not be required for students until 25-26 fall 1 submission, after which that time you'll receive a fatal error if that field is not populated for students with the designated primary and secondary disabilities. And I don't honestly know where I came across that, but it's super helpful. There is an FAQ that gives the guidance on how to answer the degree of support, identifying the student degree of support, and I've shared that in Canvas. So definitely get that. But there's too many listservs sometime, and if you're not reading all of them, you might miss these kind of critical pieces. So I shared that there, and just make sure your folks who need that will get that. Flash 271, and I certainly hope that this is, not going to be important to you unless you serve grades 9 through 12, but we include it all. But I know sometimes you see these things and like, do I have to do anything? And so if you don't serve grades 9 through 12, ignore this slide because you don't have anything to do. But there is a new system. It's an external system to CALPADS. You as a CALPADS person are automatically qualified access to it, but you aren't expected to do it. It's a local decision, right? So if somebody else is better served, there's guidance in this flash as to how who they have to email, what they have to provide to get their own account that they should be doing this. And I can tell you right away, if I have the two things that are going in there are results from the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, and the State Seal of Civic Engagement. And if I have somebody who I know is working on these at my school district, I'm going to make sure that they have access so they can upload it. And it's going to go in this system. It's largely for evaluation for future use in the College and Career Indicator. But you do get it because you're the center of the universe in many ways as relates to data. So automatically CalPADS people are on the short list of people who will receive this. But if you're not the most appropriate person, definitely find that appropriate person. And the specific guidance around what will be expected to upload is included in a former Flash 268, and I think in 271 has details about the about State Seal, if I'm not mistaken. Flash 272. This is an important one for the U.S. school enrollment date for ELs, and I do want to get stop at the end of this one, just ask how this is affecting the field, because this is a big one, right? So this is the important, getting that initial U.S. school enrollment date for English learners, and it's become critically important for two major reasons. One, it's going to be a factor in determining which students are LTELs, and when we're talking LTELs, and it's always been a factor to some degree, but now we have LTELs as a long-term English learners as a student group on the dashboard, and initial U.S. school enrollment date is going to be key for that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, in trying to make the determinations, usually the initial U.S. school enrollment date and the ELAS start date of EL coincide or within, a month, right? Because you have that 30 days. but sometimes you'll get a kid who transfers in from out of state, and they were, they came in and they're not going to take the LPAC until fourth grade, let's say. And at that point, if they're identified as an English learner, they're going to have to, when we're determining long-term English learners, that student is still a long-term English learner, even though their initial LPAC date is going to be fourth grade. So they need that to get that US school enrollment date for the determination of that student group for the dashboard. It's also going to be used, and it has been used, for determining which English learners are exempt from the ELA portion of CASP. And I'd say this is a lesser known factor, that students, they're exempt from taking the ELA exam, but their results are not included in the math academic indicator either. So it's really key is to get those dates in there for those two. So the Flash has some specific strategies to ensure the submission of the data is accurate. But important, a key thing is that this is their initial enrollment in kindergarten or TK or higher. It should not be the date that a student first entered preschool. There are some validations to ensure that the data is populated and is accurate, including, a cross-referencing the student's birthday to make sure that the student is of at least TK age, right? So, so there are some potential fatal errors here that you could encounter. But I've seen this pop up a lot. I'm just curious in the chat, what's been the impact so far? This is probably a big one where you had students without this data previously. I know it was kind of a messy data field. Just from the work I've done with our accountability folks at CDE, this is not always, and as they're working now trying to determine the LTEL student group, and the rules surrounding the dashboard for the LTEL student group, this data becomes ever more critical. Let's see, Albert, to an extent, when the grade level is kindergarten, when the student was actually in preschool once upon a time. I think that's in reference to this. Is there any other comments related to how's it going, basically, or have you gotten there yet? Have you encountered these empty fields or been encountering these validation errors? I know it's come up a couple times in the CALPADS Q&A with CSIS, so hopefully everybody's got a handle on it and they're not terrible. I know the strategies are pretty straightforward. I definitely think I haven't been pointing out who this should be shared with, but definitely make sure your registration staff. I used to look at, probably the most powerful meeting I ever started to have more frequently was with my registration clerks, my front office staff at the elementary schools, and my high school registrars, and getting the feedback from them and starting to realize, oh, this is where the obstacles are, just things you don't realize. And this is a critical one for them to know, if they can get that enrollment date, even when the student's still at TBD, it's good to have, instead of having to go back and track them down after they've taken the initial LPAC and are identified. So getting your practices refined now moving forward. Jaime, 2,000 plus, but you're working hard to fix them. Okay. All right, Wendy, thank you. 347 all fixed. Oh, wow, Jenny. So high school district, yeah, you're going to inherit a lot of students and erroneous data. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's good to know, though. The match is going to be a challenge. Any insights on that, Shaun, just in terms of when kids are coming into school, if you've got that mismatched data? I know it's kind of, this is a tricky one because it's self-reported, right? So it's.
I'm sorry, I'm reading through the question. It's from Jeannie, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so the entry date, is that what she's asking?
Yeah, she's getting different, they're getting conflicting information because they're high school districts. So people come to them and their initial US entry date is oftentimes
The SENR, the SSID extract has the original date in there, and so it looks like you're an Aries user, Jeannie, so I just override it. with when I was importing in the SSID uh, the ODS extract file. And if there is an override for that in Aries, I saw Marie was on the call, so she'd best be able to answer that portion. But again, my best practice was just the override. And Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been out for a year of Aries. So if I remember correctly, like when you're importing or uploading that file, it'll just say if you want to overwrite the fields, and you just check like two little check boxes or so,
I
or
think you're
radio
talking
buttons.
about the SSID import, and yes,
Yes.
you can. But I'm wondering if she's referring to the data that's coming in through online enrollment, which is different. So I would put it ticket in, Jenny, and let's see if we could figure out where it's coming from and if something can be done to turn it off. It might require a programming change.
So, but within the extract though, isn't there a way to override the information that
Yeah,
is in the,
yes,
okay.
yes, there is that option to either override or don't bring that in the SSID identifier.
Awesome. Yeah, I think anytime we introduce especially by high school, there's always going to be issues. But I think thank you Marie, for bringing up that question. Flash 273, keep this party rolling. The end of year submission. I mentioned already the updates to the features from to the reports and features from end of year 4. This was all updated in Flash. Updates from Flash 270 updated in Flash 273. So some things that are already active now. So take a look at that one. It'll tell you what's active for your special ed data submission. We did talk about some of these. We actually shared some screenshots last time. I've included them later in the slideshow. We're not going to go over them, but you can, refer to them or share with folks because they are kind of helpful. There are some key changes to a couple of reports that you'll want your folks to be able to look at. And this takes me right back to the first time anybody ever handed me a CalPADS report when I was at Las Virgenes and said, "Hey, will you look at this data and tell if it looks okay?" And I'm like, compare it to, look at it and compare it to what, right? So we know we have report 14.1, that student absenteeism has a new column added. So if you see any schools that are reporting 0% absenteeism, that should be a red flag, right? So anything where it doesn't look reasonable. Report 1.22, which is at graduates and completers, another useful report to look at. This is just so you know how they affect too that student absenteeism. That's going to affect your chronic absenteeism on the dashboard. So you want that to be super accurate. 1.22 graduates and completers. This is the one year graduate completer report. So it's not the cohort report, but it does ultimately feed into the DataQuest 1 year graduation report. So you want to make sure that one looks accurate. And then the big one is this 15.1, the cohort outcome. So this is both for your dashboard graduation rate and your college career indicator, and the new fields there that have been added that show outcomes for students. And that should be really helpful. This is something, we're encouraging LEAs, if you've got high school counselors who are around for any amount of time, to look at that before they're gone for the summer, to make sure that you've got, what they know to be things that students have completed in this graduating cohort, whether it's the state seal of biliteracy or other features. Those are now broken out. So that should help get kind of a more accurate picture for people to look at. There's all this Flash also covers, there's a reminder to populate the graduation exemption indicator. So we've gone over this at previous meetings, but any students who qualify under the previous Senate bill, so you've got foster youth, homeless students, any students who are eligible for the to graduate with the state minimum requirements and not the local graduation requirements, and they would have received a consultation. There's a lot of rules around that, but somebody in your district hopefully is monitoring for the various student groups who may be eligible for this. And so you want to make sure that these would be implemented now. Flash 260 has more detail, but this just reminds everyone that there is that graduation exemption indicator in place this year that needs to be in place. So we know how many of those students are graduating with minimum state requirements. End of year 3 student incidents. There weren't any changes this reporting. It was just a reminder, and I would urge anyone to look at the flash with more detail, but looking at the use of restraint and incident result reporting guidance that's very specific based on, it's very complicated and misreporting or misunderstanding what needs to be reported there. So it's outlined in the flash. And then that end of year work-based learning, the new code was mentioned earlier this year, I think, in one of our meetings, but that a new internship performance evaluation code for students who completed an internship, but there was no performance evaluation provided. So there's a lot of like little things that came up in there. Just checking the chat really quickly. Looks like we're good. And the Flash 274, the updated guidance regarding summer graduation, Flash 274, it provides that specific guidance that is a follow-up to that March letter, which we talked about previously, which basically said, we're going to continue to count those students who graduate between July 1st and August 15th. We're going to count them in the prior year cohort count, which superseded a previous decision. So that was a good decision. Here's how to make sure it works. And just a few of the details. The general guidance is that you have to have an enrollment exit date that reflects the last date that the student attended school from which they're graduating, or for the summer graduates, and that's who we're primarily focused on, the date that the student completed all state and local graduation requirements, and they're considered to be a regular high school diploma, a regular high school graduate, I should say. So key that's detailed in here is that LAs should not submit an enrollment to CALPADS for the period of time students are enrolled during the summer. CALPADS doesn't collect summer enrollments. However, a one-day enrollment and an exit is necessary for any of those students, right, to make sure we capture them on or before August 15th. And notably, August 16th is the amendment window closing deadline. So you got to be quick turnaround. So hopefully, and I used to work in adult school, so I know how it works, right? So you're capturing a lot of these kids with their, one class that they're missing and trying to pound them through. So I know hopefully you have some key folks within your accountability administrators or high school or adult school, wherever you're sending these kids to complete their coursework, make sure that they're well aware of the timeline for submission so they get it to you in a timely fashion. So you capture them. If you don't capture them and they do graduate after the fact, they will be picked up in your as a fifth-year graduate. So it's not that they're lost forever, but it's just people don't want to have that gap if they can claim them now. I know I've seen on the listserv quite a bit of detail about how people are capturing this. You don't even report attendance, as I understand it, but you just have to have that one-day enrollment exit, and then make sure your exit codes from 12th grade reflected that they're still enrolled, continuing education enrollment, and then you get that final exit code after you've cleared everything. Shaun, any other insights on this one?
No, you said it perfectly.
All right, this one's right. This one gets right to the heart. I mean, these are my kids. These are my kiddos who were like, the more kids I could get to graduate, we would really support. So I know there are a lot of districts out there who do get a lot of summer graduates. I was in LA Unified at the time, so hopefully this will work out well. But key is communication, making sure everybody knows what's expected and timely communication.
Very true, along with the prior slide for state standards graduating.
And what did you say you were going to cover, Shaun? I'm now totally blanked out. Did we already go over it?
No, we didn't.
Oh, what was it?
No, we didn't. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yes, we did cover it. I'm so sorry. Yes.
Okay.
We covered it for TK and the LPAC, the initial LPAC. It was in your slide. And
Okay.
I was answering Jeannie's question. I believe you read it, but it was for TK students may not, there's the bill that's up for review stating that TK students may or may not be tested for LPAC.
That's right.
initial.
I did not include that. Actually, I feel like I somehow skipped over the assessment slide, so I backed up to it. But that's a great thing since you bring it up. Yeah, it's in the trailer bill, and if it gets approved, you'll be notified right away because it's effective July 1. There's urgency clause, so potentially we wouldn't be testing TK. So we are monitoring that closely. We wouldn't be administering the initial LPAC to TKs this year. So as soon as we find out, we'll get that out to you in an update. I also included in here, it's from our friends at Fresno County, of course, a little primer. The link is in there, and it's also in the Canvas page, which is a great little, hey, here's what you need to do for if you're planning on doing initial summer LPAC administration. It's just a guide to everything you need to have in place to make sure it runs smoothly. So, but yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. That is really kind of a critical one. To make sure that you're aware of that potentially we would have no testing for TKs, and it would be not just good guidance, but it would be ed code. I see a couple questions I want to stop before we move on to the final section. Jenny asks, we have always used the last day of school for these students, as I don't believe Aries will extract completion status date that is not within the school year, correct? So in order to post this one-day enrollment, it would need to be done manually in CalPADS. She gets a thumbs up from Terry Foster. And Terry goes on, if summer graduates, go ahead.
Who's the we have always use the last day for so she's talking about summer grads?
Yeah.
So no, that is actually incorrect. Aries does capture summer grads, Jeannie. You'll just need to work with them to be able to identify your summer schools and what schools are feeding into which, if you're only going to have one summer school, if you're going to have multiple, that's something that you can put in a ticket for. Also, typically when you do your rollover for your SIS system, they go over that guidance with you all. Your summer grad should be identified as that actual summer grad. That is what the flash is stating. We know that some LEAs and prior have just closed out the end of the school year record as if that student was graduating at the end of the school year, and that's incorrect. And so we'd like to identify exactly who your summer graduates are. So placing that one-day enrollment up would be accurate.
All right, and that your response there just answers Terry's question too. So even if they're attending their regular high school for their summer credits, they should be submitting a one-day enrollment for the summer. Okay,
That's
awesome.
correct. And it's going to that one day is just the date that they completed summer school, not the date that they entered summer school, but the date that they completed their summer school credits and received their graduation then, or the diploma. Sorry, not graduation.
And the exit code, I don't know off the top of my head for the school year enrollment, that would be they have to be 12th graders, which
The E156.
E156.
Yes, and that's in the flash as well.
And the CalPADS code set was updated to reflect that, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Okay.
Yes, it was.
And Shelly from Hacienda Lo Puente asks, she wanted to confirm if we submit a ticket to Aries Sport, they will be able to guide us on how to report summer grads.
They will. I've completed summer grads with Aries before. It was very efficient. It was actually very seamless as well too, just because we have multiple high schools, and we were able to just kind of feed them into one, but still keep the students separated. So it didn't cause too much confusion, and they were just being able to just be picked back up at their regular schools if they were returning.
Got it. Jan has a good question here for clarification. Is the guidance for the one-day enrollment only necessary if summer school ends on or after July 1?
That's a great question, Jan. I'm gonna say no, the guidance isn't, because again, we still want to capture who. I'll get back to you, Jan.
Yeah, I'm just realizing that our graphics, has specifically that July 1 through August 5th.
Yeah, I realized, Jan. That's why I was like,
Yeah. Well, let us all know, Shaun.
Will do. I'll send it to you, Evan, and then I'll let you disperse it out.
All right. And Shelley wants to see too. Okay, so we'll get that information out to everybody. So just few end of year resources. I hope you find these useful. I know everybody's, but again, my focus is to try to build your capacity, build your support around this work, especially end of year. Everybody, it's a team effort. So just a reminder of the importance is that Senate Bill 114 established the new DA eligibility criteria for any district that submits to fail data according to the processes and timelines specified in Ed Code 60900F. So LEAs shall submit data according to processes and timelines established by the CDE. And this includes, and this is the nuance, right? It's not just getting the data in, but it's ensuring that the data is accurate, correct, and complete data. And we know sometimes when we see data, it's been certified, but we know by definition it can't be accurate, right? So you need all the help you can get, right? And if you're not in a position to know what the data should look like, you're going to need help from the field. From whoever's closest to the data, right? So if it's your English learner data that needs to be calculated, especially the year end, anything in the A through G. I've talked about my own issues that I've had in the past where, A through G data plummeted after key personnel left who were responsible for basically doing a manual override of any students who brought in CSU approved courses from outside of the district that weren't in our student information systems. There's a lot that goes into this. So you don't want to end up in technical assistance, which won't be unpleasant. You'd be working with us and we're nice. But if you can avoid it, you don't want to get that letter. So to help you do that, hey, hot off the presses, the CDE just announced yesterday that and Shaun, at the last meeting, you said, read this book inside out, like take it to bed with you at night, I think. But this is the brand new handbook for 2023-24, Connecting CalPADS to the Dashboard. It's chock full of print screens, images of what the report should look like, what you should be looking at. If you're the CalPADS coordinator, I think you can use this as a resource to share when you're asking somebody to look at a report. You can kind of seek out the relevant pages in here and provide that in addition to whatever reports you might be sending over. So we posted the new handbook on Canvas. It was also sent out to the dashboard listserv yesterday. So it's brand new. I don't know. I didn't have time to check for any of the changes. But yeah, Shaun, Chris, we put it in our Canvas page. So.
Evan, you stole my announcement for tomorrow's Wednesday Q&A.
Oh, well.
But yes.
This to me is like the CalPADS code set. I see it, I get excited. I couldn't help myself, Shaun.
Trust me, I was excited last night when I knew that it went out. Kim and I were talking, and so yes, Kim and I worked really hard to be able, and the newest team member, I believe her name is Sarah, but I'm pretty sure I'm messing up her name because that's just what I do, and I'm sorry. We all worked really hard to get this one updated, and the images and trying to meet our compliance for images as well too. So hopefully you will find it very useful, and we'll already start working on next year's.
Yeah, it's very helpful. It certainly opens it up and makes it a lot more understandable for what to look at, and also what the connections are between this work. It really drives it home how important it is for the people who understand the data to be looking at it. And this is going to be kind of a keystone of our next year's series, which we'll be bringing in non-CalPADian speakers to look at that. What should I be looking at if you're a school counselor? What should I be looking at? And this is a key document for that. I will also note that all of the trainings, I think this was already probably up last time, but I didn't have a slide. So if you weren't able to, through your Bridge account, or you don't have a Bridge account to get to any of the end of your trainings, all of those new trainings are updated. So yeah, how do you pronounce it, Shaun? Primer or primer?
I pronounce it primer, but it's kind of like caramel or caramel.
I know it is one
Potato,
of those
potato.
Anyway, so you got the primer up there, the reporting and certification for EOY 1, 3, and 4, and then the advanced reporting and certification for you super amazing folks. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. You know, the suggested milestones that were already published on the end of year checklist, they're pretty handy.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I need to fall off, but I do want to ask, I want to respond to a question that was sent to me directly,
Oh, yeah.
just because I feel like all users should know. So the LEA stated there's a lot of Aries talk happening, and I see that an Aries rep is on the Zoom. I'm just wondering, other vendors such as Infinite Campus and Power School are invited to get on this type of insight connections with CDE, LACOE, and the LEAs. Some LEAs that are customers of those products may be feeling left out. It is not our thoughts to leave anyone out. LACOE does a really good job in inviting the different vendors as well. You'll see that in the breakout sessions. I've attended the breakout sessions before. Today I just can't due to a conflict meeting that I need to hop to. But also for vendor calls, we have a regularly scheduled vendor call, and that is with all vendors, not just your SAS, but your SEDS systems as well too. And vendors make requests. I personally just did an in-person for Infinite Campus where that was requested. So yes, we do encourage all of our vendors to be collaborative and supportive. If there are specific needs, please reach out to your vendor and ask them to have CDE to support with them, and we'll gladly do so.
Yeah, thanks, Shaun. We actually do invite the vendors, all the vendors, the primary vendors, to all our meetings, and we usually get Aries and Power School are usually here, and we still keep at it. And I think it's sometimes just a time conflict, or they're just inability to, and they know they have their own quarterly meetings. But yeah, we aren't trying to be, you know, limited. But anyway, thank you, Shaun. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, everyone.
And I know we're going to run out of time here in just a minute, but want to make sure everybody knew the other things we had available for them. So yes, as I mentioned, you had this suggested timeline. Well, hey, you should have your own timeline that's customized for you. And our friends at another county office created this snappy Google template that you can put your own dates in, and that's linked. You can either access it through the Canvas page where it's linked, or you can access it from the link that's at the bottom of this slide. But you can customize it and send it to all people that you are working with in your LEA to make sure that everybody knows what the expectations are for the completion of the reports. And it's got a link there to the certification deadlines for the various reports. I included these slides just so you can share them, because not everybody knows what all is included. So here are the specifics of what gets informed on the dashboard by the various end of year submissions. This is from Fresno County again, and then the cohort poll. So your grad rate and college career, which comes out of the cohort poll. Next year, this will be gone over in detail and how to look at those reports. Also, then this kind of breakdown of what all the specifics are, how they're reported, and you can see everything that's reported. You all know this, but this is really, we shared this at our Dan meeting in the attempt to build some understanding. This is everything that you need to be looking at to make sure that your dashboard is reflective of the hard work you're doing. And then finally, a recommendation on who should be looking at these, and just tell them that LACOE shared this, and if you're the attendance supervisor at a school district, you should be looking at it according to LACOE, because we know how hard it is. So this is just some reference for you to share out. And then finally up here, and I also shared this at Dan, this is another helpful tool. Again, Fresno County, I can't beat them. They just do such a great job, and they're so generous. This CALPADS end of year report review, I linked it before, but just so you had a quick look at it. It's got recordings they're a couple of years old, but they're still very relevant. And it's really designed for non-CALPADS people to understand, what am I looking at this? What might be some red flags I should look at? So for each of the end of year submissions, they have the reports you're looking at, description of those reports, and then a quick recording that's between 12 and 40 minutes long. So a helpful tool there. It's also linked in the Canvas page. And other reports, resources that are on there. And I'm not going to go through these because these were all shared at a previous tip or a previous training. But they, like I mentioned earlier, these show you kind of the screenshots of the new updates to the report, so you know what you're looking at. And right at the button, I got to the end. Sorry to rush as always. But I also wanted to point out that we have a couple of things that folks have dropped in the chat. Sarah from our introduced the opening of the meeting from our assessment unit. So anybody working with the state testing data, she and her colleague Stephen, along with a couple folks who are here, I believe, or at least one person who's here, are having a workshop called the Data Jam: Actionable Insights and Timely Next Steps for Assessment Data. It's next week. I'm going to be there to learn. They're doing a deep dive. Oh, there you go, Dr. Moja. A deep dive, and this is some good stuff for looking at your data if you happen to have involvement with that. And Dr. Moja, sorry, Terry, it's asking for access. I'll change the link. It should be just making an automatic copy for people so we don't override it, but I thought I had it set to just automatically copy. Chris, you got a calculator. How much did you lose to chronic absenteeism? Oh man, that's brutal.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm estimating it's about $50 per day based upon what my finance team is telling me, but I'd be really curious at the next Dan meeting to ask people how much your district is losing per day per ADA.
Yeah.
And does it vary by district because of the funding formulas and stuff? But this came up as a thing for Redondo Beach Unified, where parents are saying, oh, 10 absences a year is okay. And I said, that's a $4.5 million hit if every kid in Redondo was absent 10 days a year. And that puts it in perspective. That's a lot of bake sales, you know.
Yeah.
So
Great point. But great point. And we'll check out your calculator. Thanks for sharing that. Well, I'm gonna end the meeting so you can get joined. For those of you who are Power School or Aries clients, they both are here. They have vendor sessions set up. Like I said, we always invite everybody. We thought we had a third vendor this time, and then I didn't hear back from them. But we'll continue next year. I appreciate everybody, all that you do. And I know you have a lot of work this summer, so I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, taking the hour. Hopefully we gave you something that will be of use for you, and we will continue to help you build your capacity or LEA. Good luck, and stay in touch with us over the summer if you have any questions, and keep doing the tough work. Bye-bye.